Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Why I Love Flagler County, your local podcast spotlighting local businesses and residents on why they like being in the Flagler County. So, thank you so much for my guest here today, Janie Gilbert. I met Janie at one of the first Fridays, I believe it was, on Flagler Beach, which is a perfect place if you guys haven't been on Flagler Beach, first Friday of every month. They have amazing booths like Janie's here today, and so I'm super excited for our conversation today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, I'll let you kind of share the story because maybe some people can tell your accent isn't completely from Florida. So why don't you share a little bit on what brought you to Florida? What brought you to Flagler?
Yes, a lot of people think I'm a European or from another state. Yeah, certainly. Originally, I'm from Quebec, Canada, so my first language was French. So I did not speak English until I was 21 years old. And then I met my husband there in Quebec, and we wanted to learn English and discover the world. So we left for an English city. Um, and I worked for an American employer, and so I would cross the Niagara Falls Bridge every day from Niagara Falls to Buffalo. So I knew all the agents, the border agents there. And so it was just easier to move to Buffalo. But I really do not like the cold. In
Mm,
Canada, there's a lot of snow, and it just wasn't for me. So we were tempted by Florida, and Flagler was just kind of perfect, close to the beach, pricing, like just everything we were looking for, just pinpointed on Flagler. Or I guess
that
Palm Coast. We're in Palm Coast. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And like I said, I'm from Michigan, so I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to weather and snow. And on the opposite, like Canada doesn't get warmer. Like you can't go further south to find warmth like you can in Florida, like in the States.
Yeah.
Like I lived, and I also knew a lot of people who went over the border all the time. Like the
Yes.
Detroit
Michigan. Yeah.
border to Windsor was like 20 minutes, like completely. And I knew so many people who went to like ballet school in Windsor and things like that. And they also knew their like the gay agents and they're like, hey, how are you? Well, double check. All right, just go through. You know you by now. So that's
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the way that we met at the first Friday on Flagler Beach was that you were doing some fundraising for your daughter's swimming team, which is synchronized swimming team. I want to make sure that's clear because there's so many different types. And synchronized swimming is just like insane levels of like talent and skill that you must have.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to share a little bit on how you got into photography because that's how we met.
Yeah, so I started when my kids were little. So I decided when they were little, before I was crossing the bridge every day. So I took some time and was a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to stay with them and I wanted to take pictures of them. So I got my first DSLR and I was just kind of doing photo with them. And then actually I didn't really do much photography. Then I actually ended up doing video. I did a lot of the like short films and stuff, like really more video oriented. I did a lot of wedding videos. So I hadn't really tapped into photography much. Like I had tried it with my kids, but really it's like I can't remember why, but I went to video, um and then I realized video takes so much time to edit that I had it's just too long for the money involved. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let's go back into photo. That seems a little faster to edit, for pretty much the same money. So
Right.
so then I went back to doing photo, and then that's when I kind of deep dove into it like myself. Like I just watched tutorials and learned about all the settings. I didn't really know much. I mean, I knew a little bit because of the video, but um like shutter speeds, ISO, and focus, like everything. And then that's all I do. I'll do video if people ask me, but it's got to be worth my time because it
Right.
takes so much time to edit. Like it's just, yeah. if you
Yeah.
want to do it well.
Right. No, exactly. Like, especially for like this podcast too, is I don't do a whole lot of editing. And in fact, I have like someone to help me with it. And people are like, do you edit like in between the interviews and like jump here and then I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. I do like a nice like thumbnail and then like outro and things like that. But like I'm not gonna do like a whole jumping around. Like we're gonna keep it kind of simple because to watch the footage back and kind of sync it up with music and make sure it's good and check again and check again. It don't I know exactly what you mean when it said long.
It is. It really isn't. And if you've never done it, you don't know how long it is. It's even if you just do it with your phone, the apps now, you can just do a lot
Oh
with your
gosh.
phone.
Right.
Even that takes time. So imagine if you're actually like I use 4K footage. So like it's very,
Oh,
very big files. So I have
yes.
this big computer and you got to put this SD card in and that's not even an SD card, it's a card like that. You need the special reader. Like it's just a whole process, right? So
Yeah.
no.
It's definitely a lot like it's crazy to see like it's gonna kind of go on a tangent, but it's crazy to see how editing has changed in the past like 10 or so years because I started in middle school. I was bored and I was on YouTube and I was like watching tutorials and I taught myself how to video edit, right? Like any middle schooler with free time does. um and the way that the YouTube tutorials even now have like changed and adapted to all these new styles. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had that." When I was learning, I had the world's most basic tutorials. Now everyone has like everything at the tip of their fingers. I'm like, "Wow, that seems so cool."
Yeah, but you know what though? It's good to know the basic, like to
Oh
go
yeah,
old school. Because that's the thing though, is like if you don't understand the whole behind the scene, it's either to just take any app and do something, but you don't really understand what's raw footage. Like they won't show you that if you're just clipping things.
right.
There's so yeah, so it's good to actually sometimes stay,
Yeah. And I think
you
that's
know.
actually a great kind of segue into one of my questions that I was thinking of is, when you learn the basics behind things and the mechanics and you can really forge your own style and your own path through photography, have you noticed kind of the style of your photography changing, the things you like to photograph? How has that kind of evolved throughout the years?
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely stuck with people. Like I've never. I mean, I like anything that moves. So I kind of. I mean, I'll do headshots if people are like, "Hey, do you want to just do a headshot business?" Like, I'll do it, but I much rather will like to do anything that moves. So my daughter, who does synchronized swimming, I mean, I'm there at every competition. I'm by the pool and I snap until I get everything I wanted. I'll do butterflies, dragonflies. I really like those because they move. So it's I guess if it's harder to catch, like I'm
Mm,
interested. If it's like too easy, I'm like, it's boring. So anything that moves, I guess that's how I evolved to because at first you don't really know. You just try to grab everything until you
right.
understand, and then now that's pretty much all I'll do. I'll do a lot of events because they're actually pretty tricky. Like you have to follow everybody around and change your setting as you go, and I like the challenge.
Yeah, especially after, you do it for a while, you kind of need that challenge to keep going. Otherwise, you're like, I'm just taking the same shots every single time. They all kind of look the same. I want to spice it up. I want it to look differently. I want to be able to tell that was that day, this was this day, this was this routine, things like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Are there any, like, memories that you have associated with any, like, specific, like, maybe when you first shot, like, your daughter's synchronized competitions or any memories you have with photography that you're like, "I probably wouldn't have this memory if it wasn't for photography," or something like that?
Oh, that's a very good question. Maybe not like that, but it's funny how the first time I tried so they were swimming, just lane swimming before
Mhm.
she did. And it's really hard to do swimming pictures, right? Because they're really out of the water for a split second. And I think the first events, like the first few events I did, all my shots were water. That was it. There was no head, no body. Like
Right.
because I didn't understand when to snap or which setting to use. I wasn't good enough then, right? So all my shots were and it's water. And so that's kind of funny because you look
Yeah.
back at your pictures in the first competition, it's just water. And then oh, the next one, oh, hey, I got it. Okay, what did I do so that I actually was able to get? Okay. And then you kind of evolve. So it's just maybe not one memory, but just kind of an evolution that's interesting to
Yeah.
witness through pictures.
Yeah, definitely. And that feeling that you can remember being like, oh, I remember like not feeling as proud of these pictures to like now it's like, oh yeah, I can do these. They're not as like tedious in my brain. It's not as like I have to focus on every detail, like I'm sure you still do, but it's not as like panicky. Like I need to make sure that I'm getting these shots right. It's like, okay, I understand. I've been here before. I know when is a good time to take a picture, especially because if you do your daughter's routine more than once
Right.
you just know the beats of the music. All right, I know exactly 30 seconds in, she's gonna pop her head and I'm gonna know where she is.
Exactly, exactly. Definitely, it gets easier, and that's another interesting point. See, because their first competition is very soon. I have not seen the routines yet, so I
Mm,
probably won't have as good pictures as the last one in June, where I'm
right.
like, okay, I've seen it now like 5, 8 times. I know what's next, right? So that's a very
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned is that a lot of people give up so easily on things like that. It's like, oh, my first, session of taking photography, it's only water. I'm not meant to be this way. And honestly, it's just something you have to be able to go through like a little bit of a learning curve. Like, okay, maybe it really isn't, but to give it up at the first try doesn't necessarily seem like it makes sense. Maybe it's something you discover okay, I can do it, but I just don't get joy from it. But now I know, so I can use this data and move forward.
Yeah, exactly. You know what they say, right? A winner is a loser who tried just one more time.
Oh, I've actually never, I don't know if I've heard that saying, or at least not in a long time. That's perfect.
That's
It
true.
exactly
You
fits that.
lose until you win, right? So
Yeah, I think that's a great, yeah, I feel like I've heard so many quotes in my life. Maybe I've heard it before, but it never really sunk in. But now I'm hearing, I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes complete and total sense. That's
yeah,
so cool. Thank you for
yeah.
sharing. I learn something new every day. Well, Janie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a few minutes of your time. I really appreciate it. And I really enjoyed the advice and everything that you were sharing about your story. Is there any last thing you'd kind of like to throw out there before I wrap it up?
Um, no, I mean, thank you for having me. I think
Yeah,
it's great you do that.
thank
Flagler,
you.
what's cool is there's everything, right? You got the beach, you got the city, you got the sun. It's really a great place. So it's a really good idea you have to
Yeah.
showcase the businesses around. Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I get to go to like events where I get to meet people like you and have them on my show and learn more about what they do and talk a little bit about it. And I sometimes geek out when it comes to more like media related entities. I get really nerdy about it because I love like movies and books and pictures and all those things. So I always ask like very specific questions. Everyone's like, wait a minute, like where did this come from? Like, I'm so sorry. I just go in the zone. I just get
Hey,
excited.
I'm here for you. I like that too.
Thank you so much. Well, again, thank you so much for coming out and just spending a few minutes with me. I know you're super busy, so I'm super honored.
No, thank
If anyone
you.
wants to learn a little bit more about your photography or any way that they can book you, where can they contact you or reach out?
Yes, thank you so much. My website, which I'm sure you post somewhere, it's
Mhm.
marquisvp.wordpress.com. Contact info is there, events, weddings, engagements, baby pictures, anything that moves is my thing. So I'll do it.
Uh,
I just did a wonderful 1-year-old baby pictures last week.
oh,
Super
I'm
cool.
sure those are so precious.
They
So much
are, and
because they move a lot.
yeah, yeah. So
They
you're
are
following.
essentially like butterflies. They move just as much. It's fun.
Exactly. So yeah, that was fun.
Oh, that's so cool. Yes. So I'll make sure I have that linked in the description so people can click on that just a little bit easier and check out, I'm sure, your very beautiful photos on there. So again, thank you so much for coming on and thank you to
Thank
everyone listening
you.
and I'll see you around.
Bye. Thank you so much.